I sort of remember some great times as I grew up when my parents would come back from teaching class and would round my sister and me up and say, hurry up, finish your homework, we are going to Banaras to listen to music. And on a Lambretta scooter, we would, roll off like a Ramleela ki chauki. So I don't come from a family of hereditary musicians, but I have inherited from my parents and from my family, my grandparents even, a love for the arts. I don't remember my parents telling me that, stop your music lessons because abhi exam hone wala hai. So we were never given this idea that music or let's say theatre, that we would be involved in, school theatre and amateur theatre, that this is something that you can do as a leisure pastime or as a hobby. It somehow was, it had to be there always in your life. It wasn't prioritized, that everything, that the most important thing is school or your education. Education meant an education with the art. My father would try and play Kishore Kumar songs on the flute and compile little, collections of his favorite Kishore Kumar songs. We would also listen to the Beatles. We would also go to every single classical music concert that happened in Allahabad. And it just sort of went on as part of our lives every day, not as anything that one had to really prepare for. It just was there. We were surrounded by it. A kind of unconditional support. It wasn't just support in terms of, a tacit permission to let me do. It was an indulgence, But other than that, I don't recall my parents ever asking, when are you going to sing on radio? When are you going to appear on television? Those conventional milestones of success that that people would like to see, That my parents really realized that art is quite a compulsion, and you need to let somebody who is really involved in the arts find their own way. I was fortunate that one of the greatest scholar composers and gurus of our times was teaching at the Allahabad University, Pandit Ramashray Jha Ramrang. And so he was in a sense a colleague of my parents, and they went to him and requested that he accept me as a disciple, and I was very fortunate that for over 30 years I learned from him. Learning anything and in the kind of rigorous discipline that is required of Hindustani classical music is not easy to accept for anyone, leave alone for me, and I wasn't from a family of musicians. So once Pandit Ramashray Jha ji accepted me as a disciple, there were many lessons that were not just about music that I learned. So he said that, listen, I can only teach you if you come to my home only on a Sunday, because the rest of the time I'm teaching, the rest of the week I'm teaching at the university. You need to come early in the morning because many people come to learn from me, and there is only, let's say, 4, 5, 6 hours of teaching that I can do at one stretch. I can't do more than that. And I've never been a morning person. So I think it was a big challenge for my parents to get me out and get ready for Talim. I would be escorted either by my father or my mother, and we would leave the house really early, but it still so happened that when we reached, very often there was somebody else who had reached maybe a couple of minutes before us, which meant that they would get their talim and I would be permitted to sit there and listen. Now this is also a privilege. You don't get to learn, this customized way of teaching, which is such an integral part of the Guru Shishya Parampara. It's not about observing a classroom. It's actually about observing a guru examining the strengths and limitations of that individual and customizing the training for his or her requirements. Well, the artistic struggle, in a sense, is not different for women or men. In terms of finding your own voice, finding your own style, that I guess is an artistic struggle that we continue to grapple with all our lives. Acceptance from a milieu that has largely been dominated by males. I mean, in the past as well, women musicians like the great Kesarbai Kerkar, and she could hold her own. She could not only, it wasn't just a question of what fee you demanded, but what respect you commanded. So, despite the fact that she came from a community of hereditary musicians who had a social stigma attached to them, she was able to command respect from everybody. She could take off the chief minister of Maharashtra if he was in her audience, and nobody had the guts to protest. So there have been women like that in music who commanded respect by their sheer genius and brilliance. So I'm happy to say that art has this, it transcends, it has this strength, it has this quality of transcending even patriarchy.